and Emma Rodriguez could feel the weight of exhaustion settling into her bones. Her first week at Sterling Enterprises had been overwhelming. It's filled with new procedures, unfamiliar faces, and the constant pressure to prove herself worthy of the position. As a data analyst in the finance department, she knew she was lucky to have landed this job. But the reality was far more demanding than she had anticipated. Emma stood at the entrance of the towering glass building. Watching the rain begin to fall in thick, heavy drops, she clutched her worn leather bag closer to her chest, mentally calculating whether she had enough money for a taxi or if she would need to brave the 2 bus transfers. That would get her home to her small apartment in the eastern district of the city. Her phone buzzed, with a message from her mother asking if she could send money for her younger brother's school supplies. Emma closed her eyes briefly, feeling the familiar knot of responsibility tighten in her stomach. Every penny counted, and taking a taxi would mean sacrificing something else this week, as she stood there contemplating her options. A sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb directly in front of her. The vehicle was immaculate, clearly expensive. With tinted windows and chrome accents that gleamed even under the darkening sky, Emma assumed it was one of the company cars sent to pick up an executive, so she stepped aside to make room. To her surprise, the passenger window rolled down smoothly, revealing a man in the driver's seat. He had sharp, handsome features, dark hair styled perfectly, and wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. His eyes, a striking shade of gray-blue, met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch for just a moment. "You work here?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth. Emma nodded, still holding her bag protectively. "Yes, I just started this week." "The rain is going to get worse," he observed, glancing up at the sky. "Where are you headed?" She hesitated, unsure why this driver was speaking to her so casually. Perhaps the company had implemented a new rideshare program for employees working late hours. She had heard mentions of such benefits during her orientation, but had assumed they were reserved for senior staff. "Riverside Gardens District," she answered cautiously. "But it's quite far. I can take the bus." The man studied her for another moment, then reached across to unlock the passenger door. "Get in!" "I'll drive you." Emma's instincts told her to be cautious about accepting rides from strangers. But this was clearly a company vehicle, and the man seemed professional despite his informal manner. The rain was falling harder now, soaking through her thin jacket, and the thought of standing at a bus stop in this weather made her decision easier. "Thank you so much," she said gratefully. Opening the door and sliding into the leather seat, the interior of the car was luxurious beyond anything she had experienced. Soft leather, polished wood trim, and a subtle scent of expensive cologne filled the space. "I really appreciate this." "Is this the new employee transport service?" The man pulled away from the curb smoothly, his hands confident on the steering wheel. "Something like that," he replied, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "First week, you said?" "Yes," Emma confirmed, settling into the comfortable seat. "It's been intense, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. Sterling Enterprises is known for taking care of its people." "Is it?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his tone. "That's what everyone says," Emma replied, watching the city streets blur past the window. "Though I suppose I'll learn the truth as time goes on. I'm just trying to keep my head down and do good work." "What department are you in?" "Finance. Data analysis specifically. It's mostly number crunching and report generation, but I enjoy it. There's something satisfying about finding patterns in chaos." "That's an interesting way to describe it. Most people find data analysis tedious." Emma shrugged. "I guess I'm not most people. Besides, tedious work pays the bills, and that's what matters right now." "You sound like you have responsibilities," he observed. Navigating through traffic with practiced ease, she hesitated before answering, unused to sharing personal details with strangers. But something about his manner put her at ease, and the intimacy of the car in the rain created a strange sense of confidentiality. "My family depends on me," she admitted. "My father had a stroke 2 years ago, and my mother works as a seamstress. But it's not enough to support my younger brother. I send money home every month to help with medical bills and expenses." "That's admirable," he said quietly, and she could hear genuine respect in his voice. Not many people your age would shoulder that kind of responsibility. I don't see it as a choice, Emma replied honestly. They're my family. What else would I do? They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the rain creating a rhythmic percussion against the windshield. Emma found herself studying the man's profile when she thought he wasn't looking. There was something refined about him that didn't quite fit with her image of a company driver. The way he carried himself, the quality of his clothes, even the way he spoke suggested education and confidence. How long have you been driving for Sterling Enterprises? She asked, curious despite herself. A while, he answered vaguely. Long enough to know the city well? Do you enjoy it? He seemed to consider the question carefully before responding. It has its moments. I get to meet interesting people, hear their stories. Like yours, for instance. Emma felt herself blushing. My story isn't particularly interesting. Just a girl from a small town trying to make it in the big city. It's pretty common. I don't think so, he disagreed. The fact that you're willing to work hard and sacrifice for your family says something about your character. That's not common at all, especially not in this city, where everyone seems focused solely on their own advancement. His words touched something deep inside her, a validation she hadn't realized she needed. That's kind of you to say. It's not kindness. It's observation. He glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. What made you choose Sterling Enterprises? The reputation mostly, Emma admitted. They're known for being ethical, for promoting from within based on merit rather than connections. I don't have connections, so merit is all I've got. No. And you think merit is enough in this world? It has to be, she said firmly. Otherwise, what's the point of working hard? He smiled at that, a genuine expression that transformed his face from handsome to striking. An idealist. That's refreshing. You say that like it's a bad thing? Not bad. It's just rare. This city has a way of grinding down idealism until all that's left is cynicism. Emma turned to look at him more directly. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Has the city ground you down? Something flickered across his face, an emotion she couldn't quite identify. Let's just say I've learned that things aren't always what they seem. People wear masks, play roles, and it becomes difficult to know what's real. That sounds lonely, Emma said softly. He glanced at her with surprise, as if no one had ever made that particular observation before. It can be, he admitted. The car slowed as they approached Emma's neighborhood. The contrast between the gleaming business district they had left behind and these modest streets was stark. Small apartment buildings lined the roads, mom-and-pop shops on the ground floors, laundry hanging from balconies despite the rain. It's the third building on the left, Emma directed. The one with the blue awning. He pulled up smoothly in front of her building, putting the car in park but leaving the engine running. Emma gathered her bag, suddenly reluctant to leave the comfortable cocoon of the car and the strange connection she had felt with this enigmatic driver. Thank you so much for the ride, she said sincerely. You saved me from a very wet and uncomfortable evening. It was my pleasure, he replied, and she could tell he meant it. Emma opened the door, then hesitated. The rain was still falling steadily, and a thought occurred to her. It was impulsive, probably inappropriate, but she found herself speaking before she could second-guess the decision. Would you like to come up for coffee? She asked. As a thank you. It's the least I can do after you drove me all the way here. The man looked surprised, his eyebrows rising slightly. For a long moment, he simply studied her, and Emma felt her cheeks growing warm under his scrutiny. She was about to withdraw the offer, embarrassed by her forwardness. When he turned off the engine, coffee sounds nice, he said simply. They hurried through the rain to the building entrance. Emma fumbling with her keys while trying to shield herself from the downpour. Once inside, they climbed 3 flights of stairs to her small apartment. Emma's heart was racing. Though whether from the stairs or from nervousness about inviting a stranger into her home, she couldn't say. It's not much, she warned as she unlocked her door. But it's home. The apartment was tiny but immaculately clean. A combined living room and kitchen area, with a small bedroom visible through a partially open door. The furniture was mismatched and clearly second-hand. But Emma had tried to make it welcoming with colorful cushions and plants on the windowsill. Please, sit down, she offered, gesturing to the worn but comfortable couch. "I'll make the coffee." As she busied herself in the small kitchen, Emma was acutely aware of him in her space. He seemed to fill the room with his presence, making everything feel smaller and more intimate. She could feel his eyes following her movements as she prepared the coffee maker and retrieved 2 mugs from the cabinet. "You keep your home very organized," he observed. "Everything has its place. When you don't have much space, you learn to be efficient," Emma replied, waiting for the coffee to brew. "Plus, I grew up in a household where tidiness was expected. Old habits die hard." "Tell me more about where you grew up," he said. Genuinely interested, Emma found herself opening up in a way she rarely did with strangers. She told him about her small hometown, 3 hours outside the city. About her father's hardware store before the stroke. About her mother's determination to keep the family together despite their struggles. She talked about her brother's dreams of becoming an engineer, and how she was determined to help him achieve that goal. The coffee finished brewing, and Emma brought 2 mugs to the living room. Sitting in the armchair across from the couch, the man accepted his coffee with thanks, taking a sip and nodding appreciatively. "This is excellent," he commented. "Much better than what we have at the office." "Family recipe?" Emma said with a smile. "My grandmother was very particular